Hi, I'm Bridie Mullan and I'm with the Greysteel Community Enterprise in County Derry, and I'm on the board of directors and I'm treasurer on the board as well.
I'm Donal Traynor. I'm Group CEO of Community Finance Ireland, and we're the lead partner in the development of the NetWorks23 Cross-Border Communities and Partnership Programme. So Bridie, I remember Greysteel from back around more than 10 years ago, when we delivered a similar type project on a 12 county basis, where the ladies in the Vale Centre were involved in this programme as well. How did you get involved with the group itself?
I was working for the Department of Education, and they were focused on youth about 8 years ago and developing the youth facilities in the area, so they wanted somebody who had a background in that. I was managing extended schools and school libraries and a lot of projects for the education department in the West. So because I lived in the area, it seemed right that I should volunteer and, help out in whatever way I could.
Ask a busy person to do lots of work, and you're sure to get a positive answer. That's it, yeah. I suppose you'd come on this cross-border programme. Where do you see a benefit in participating in programs like this on a cross-border basis, or what do you feel there is to learn, to garner from projects that are working in a different jurisdiction, possibly getting access to different funders, maybe have a different set of priorities due to the macroeconomic environment they're in? Where do you see the real benefit in this?
Well, there's quite a few strands in terms of the benefits. Obviously, there's the direct benefits, and there's the networking opportunities for not just the people in the room that we're working with, but also learning about who they are working with in turn, and seeing the bigger picture, and hearing about the programmes that operate in the south of Ireland in comparison to the north, because I think there's an opportunity there to influence government in the way that programmes are run. I mean, we're hearing programmes for, support for the diaspora, for example, that we came across. So we're thinking, there's nothing like that in the north, but why couldn't we have some joined up thinking on that? So there's a bigger picture to look at rather than just our own village and what we need, but just looking at how, on a wider scale, we need to open our eyes and look at cross-border funding to support those programmes. So if in the north we're further down the road on a particular programme and vice versa, it's the other way in the south, then we need to learn from each other on a shared island perspective, that we are going forward and learning from each other and not reinventing the wheel, and being out the cost of that as well, and finding for some reason it didn't work, and then they can say, well, I told you so, had you done it this way. So we'd like to short circuit that and find some of those quicker answers.
Yeah, and I mean, as you kind of mentioned yourself, like the Vale Centre in Greysteel is very much advanced in an awful lot of aspects of what it does in comparison to many other communities on the island. What would you say would have been the one specific takeaway that you would have garnered from your networking or contacts on the programme here with some of the projects that you have in mind to develop?
I think it's the difference in scale. It's very interesting to look at how some community groups have maybe only 20 or 30 members, and the strides that they're making, to renovate halls and open Airbnbs and capitalise on the programmes for the youth and for the elderly and the disabled and so on. It's not about having thousands of people on your doorstep that support you. From a very small scale programme, they've actually managed to make it work, and I think we have a lot to learn from that, because we are working on a bigger scale with a lot of property and land and so on, but our problems are still the same. It's covering overheads, rising costs, employment legislation, dealing with HR issues. There's no difference. So to be able to get into a room with other people and hear what their issues are and think, we've got the same, but it's interesting to see how they're dealing with it.
And then, okay, so from a cross-border perspective, you can see, wow, there could be a couple of different funding opportunities here. So that's one side of the package. And then when you have projects developed, what part do you think cross-border or indeed cross-community has to play in actually getting the customers in the door?
A lot to learn in how they're actually operating. We went to look at a programme which was sports-based, and on a very simple scale, they have put in some porta cabins, and they're selling coffee. And they have done the statistics on something as simple as coffee and the number of users. And you think, there's a simple idea, that could be applied to so many places in the right venue that didn't cost an arm and a leg to get going in the first place, and yet it works for them. So there have been small-scale learning projects like that, but also to see how people are coming together in much bigger general social enterprise centres where they're employing up to maybe 120 people. And that's not what we're doing. We're indirectly employing them because the tenants are using our property. But there's an opportunity there to look at other social enterprises and how we might manifest that in the years to come.
Where are you on the conversation around the level of commercial viability a social enterprise has to have? Would you be, look, we're always going to have to avail of some sort of grant funding, level of grant funding to keep a social enterprise alive, or are you striving towards this 100% self-sustainability mode of operation?
We're trying to get away from the grant funding system because it's not sustainable, and it has become more difficult to access those resources because there is such demand. In our area alone, there's something like 500 community groups in the northwest. Maybe only 4 or 5 of them are going to get that particular funding pocket. Well, we're now at the 4th area of development on the site, and each one has had to be sustainable so that the income is covering the overheads. But going forward, we see if we don't enter into a whole new era of developing some very solid new projects, that it won't be sustainable. We will always just be splitting even or looking for small grants to top up. So it's not the good way to go because you're living hand to mouth and you don't know if you'll be able to cover the overheads by the end of the year, and your accounts don't turn out the way they wanted them at the end of the financial year. So no, definitely we would want to go down the route of being self-sustainable and not depend on funding. And we have come through a period from our early years where we did need funding, and I can see that for some other projects here, but I think you have to grow and stand on your own 2 feet and not be dependent on handouts. And it is doable, and we've managed to show that, but now we need to build that again and have a good reserve as well. So it's not just about breaking even, but putting the reserve there that we have it for years to come, and we're currently working on that.